Hi, everybody, and this is Melissa Klein, and I'm here to just give you a quick rundown about how I set up my layers and when I work digitally. And even though I know that many of you are working on, more traditional materials, I think it's still relevant to think this way. And a lot of times, as I'm drawing in other mediums, I do think about this. Like I do think about this. In some ways, you could say a lot of times what I'll do is, especially with clients, like really rough, quick sketches, pencil sketches, and then as we get the design more firmly established, then I just kind of take over and do it. But you could say that a rough pencil sketch is the equivalent of a layer as you're trying to figure things out. And, I know that some of you guys are, have shared that you do that. And I just think that's a great way to figure things out in a rough, quick, dirty way and then be able to move it around. So whether you're working digitally or I would say analog, um, the process is really the same. So right now I have this set up in Adobe Sketch, which is a program that I love. It's on the iPad. You can get it for free. However, the caveat is they've stopped supporting it. So there's other wonderful programs like Procreate and ArtRage that I hear great things about. I like this program actually because it's so simple in many ways and so limited. And the pencil feature. So, at any rate, at the this here is the background layer, which I think of as the canvas. It just automatically comes with this sort of white thing, and then as I'm hitting the little square, I'm hiding and revealing the layer. And this other this layer is, I think of them almost as like transparent pieces of glass or plastic that are going on. For no particular reason, I seem to like to do my initial sketch outs in this sort of cyan type blue. All I can think is that it's a carryover from when graphic designers used to make the guidelines using these special blue pencils that couldn't be picked up by the copier. I know that's a little bit esoteric, but there you go. Um, And so my goal today is to show you sort of mountainy, misty um, type painting, but I'm also going to do a gecko in there that is sort of going to be more like a dragon gecko guarding guarding this. And I'm using the pencil tool, and I'm using a iPad pencil. And I'm just playing around with the different elements, getting that down. And I really want the gecko to be noble and very crabby looking at the same time. This is my goal. In fact, I'm going to import in the reference photo that I want to use. And special thanks to William Arignac, because he had emailed me and said, hey, I could use some pointers on this. And I was like, hey, that would go great with what I'd planned to do. And and this is a reference photo from Petco. And, just a little bit of a note on copyright, because this is for instructional purposes and I'm going to make a lot of changes to it. Um, I'm not too worried about copyright, but do keep that in mind as you're working. And I also happen to like. Oops, You can just import this in. Um, I also really like this picture of this guy. They have this wonderful, like, pissed off looking face. This is cool too. You can flip the images. I'm gonna, because I want my gecko facing to the right. You can also flip it vertically, but that doesn't work so good that time. Um, so there it is. And and then you can hide and reveal depending on what you're after, and transform. Okay. Now everybody wants an iPad. I get it. I get it. Um, yeah. The main thing that I think for me that I really like is how you can work very quickly and make a lot of revisions, and then once things get kind of established, then you can. Then a lot of times I'll go through and do the image in the traditional materials. So for sketching this out, I'm just kind of looking at the structure of it. And what's so great about this picture is it's got a very clear, like, kind of, it has a kind of a, oops, so I think I'm going to switch colors to something that'll stick out a little bit more against the green. But it has this really clear triangular shape to its face, and then this cute little triangle hat thing. He's just adorable. By the way, William, thank you very much for this, because now all Auntie wants is yet another pet, which is one of these geckos. So, yeah, it's just endless. And a pot-bellied pig while we're at it, and a pug. Um, but so there's kind of this structure, and I want to make him look a little bit more, I don't know, serious. So I'm going to make his mouth kind of angle down a little bit. Cute little triangle hat. And this is fun too, because many of you have heard me go on about the triangle issue, and so pick something. Triangles to me as a shape just tend to sort of stick out a lot. Okay, and I'm just thinking about that. Oh, he's just magnificent. He's got this kind of zoom in here. I'm noticing that there's this sort of how his chin. A lot of times, what I do is I call it dropping verticals and horizontals. So as I'm drawing, I'm thinking, I'm in my mind, I'm drawing on top of the picture, but I'm comparing things most things to a grid, but I don't like doing grid drawings. But I'll look at the different angles of things. So if this is straight up, straight across, what is the angle of the chin? And so it's actually quite mathematical. Look at all those triangles. So it's like Revenge of the Triangle Day. And that's probably why I like it, though, because it has such a distinct shape. Same thing even here with the verticals and the horizontals is to get this curve. I'm gonna not only just kind of follow this with my eye, but I'm also gonna be kind of thinking like, all right, look, this here is a negative space, and I'll be looking to see, like, to make sure. I'll be kind of drawing around it, and as I draw, I tend to go really quick in my mind. I'll be in a nanosecond, I'll be drawing along the back, but in the other nanosecond, I'll be thinking about how does that line look relative to this stuff, this negative space. And same thing here, like with anytime you've got like arms and stuff, it's really helpful if you just draw what's not the arm. Like if you just draw this little triangle thing, you've got, with a little bit of a curve, you got the guy's arm, which is fun. So a little note on that. And what's cool about doing this is that it's so, you can be really imaginative with it. And I can tell already that there's, see here, I made his little hat thingy too straight up and down. So if I just kind of compare these, I'm like, yeah, okay. That's probably better. Maybe it wasn't as bad as I thought. I don't know. Again, so just kind of thinking about, and when I think about, this is called actually a 3/4 view. When I think about it, it's like I'm thinking about the eyeball on the other side. Like, what would that be doing? Okay, I'm going to take that out. But I am thinking about it. And how that's sort of looking here. And now this is where I'm going to go a bit off-road. And far as I can tell, they kind of have these little bubble bodies. Just another reason for me to get one of these as a pet. I need this as a model for sure. And the great thing about, as far as I can tell, at least from Cleo's lizard, they don't seem to move around that much. So I think they're just great models. It's just like, I am staring into, you know. So they call them the social isolation gecko. I'm probably not being terribly anatomically correct here. But that's okay. I could look that up. Same thing here too, like as I'm doing this sort of little body thing. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of a curve to it. And of course the wonderful thing about geckos is that they have these great tails that just seem to spiral into everything, into like really tightly into stuff. And I think I can do that better. So not there yet, but this is right now just as the rough sketch underneath. Okay, now I'm gonna hide these photos and probably erase a little bit of that. That's kind of cool. Let's see. Oh yeah, this cool thing. You can duplicate a layer, right? And then in this case, because I kind of like the little reference I did, well, it's not that big a deal, but I can hide this layer and the layer that has both of them, and then while I'm working on this one, I can go for it. I can just erase this and then hide it, got the other one, blah blah blah. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay. One of the things to be aware of with layers is keeping your layers straight in terms of what's on what. And how I like to work is I like to, my rule of thumb is put different things, anything that is significant should have its own separate layer. Sometimes I run into problems in that I run out of the amount of layers that this program can do, so I'm like kind of combining stuff that I wouldn't normally do, and sometimes it makes it a little bit hard in terms of, editing and stuff. But this is, yeah, so to me, the chameleon should be on one layer, the mountain should be on the other. For an underdrawing, I'm not that worried, but when I go to do what I would call the inking process, I'm going to put them on separate layers. And yes, there will be mountains in the mist with this, I promise. As well as probably some, stuff coming out of the gecko's little nose hole things. Probably not anatomy. And I might even adjust it to have it, flame throwing kind of thing. That's where I'm like playing around with the jaw a little bit to move it around. At this point, I'm going to go into sort of the time-lapse zone, and so you guys can just kind of see, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about how I set this up. Next steps for this will be, now that I have a basic underdrawing, is drawing the mountains, drawing the gecko on separate layers, and then probably the mist on mist and clouds and effects on separate layers. Thank you so much for watching, and I am really stoked to see what you guys do with this one. Take care.